All right, so it is December 31st, 1999. We are getting ready to change into the new millennia, and you have a certain amount of money. Let's just say you have about $6,000, and you give it to a couple different brokers, and they're gonna purchase some stocks for you. They're gonna give you some things to hopefully give you a return in the future. Well, this first broker who you've given the money to, he buys some stock in a little company called Apple. Now, at this time, the value of the stock is 92 cents. And he spends $500 on this. He also does this with a company called Microsoft. Fast forward to 2010, he puts the other 1,000 you've given to him into a company called Tesla. Your second broker holds on to it until 2012, where he puts it into a new up-and-coming company called Facebook. And then you also give to another broker. Wow, let's just see how they've done. The second broker, on December 31st of 2021, returns with a profit of $22,726 from that initial 2,000. And that first broker that you've hired. On December 31st, 2021, he sells all of your shares in those three companies. At this time, the values of Apple is valued at $177.57. Microsoft is worth over $300 and Tesla over $350. Your returns would be $96,000 from Apple, over $2,000 from Microsoft, and a total profit from Tesla at $221,000. Your total return from these, not including any additional investments or dividend returns, would total over $320,000 off that initial $2,000 that you had given him. Well, the third, how did the third do? Well, he took about $300, put some in, bought you some lottery tickets, and he bought you some sports cards of rookie players who, were guaranteed to make it big. None of them did. He returns with $1,700 out of the initial $2,000 you gave him. At this point, who would you rather trust with your money, with making investments on your behalf? Now, this morning you might be asking, what does it have to do with you and I, or even with the church? And I'm not going to be talking this morning about financial wisdom. Instead, I want to talk about the kingdom of heaven and the investment that the Lord has made in it. And today, to do that, we're going to be in the 25th chapter of the book of Matthew. So if you want to turn there with me. All right, and starting in verse 14, it says, "For the kingdom of heaven, for it will be like a man who's going on a journey, who calls his servants and entrusted to them his property. To one he gave 5 talents, to another 2, to another 1, to each according to his ability, and then he went away. He received the 5 talents, went at once and traded with them, and he made 5 talents more. So also he who had the 2 talents made 2 talents more. But he who had received the 1 talent went and dug in the ground and hid his master's money." So before we even get any further in this, it says the master is gone. He's leaving on a long trip. I think in the Gospel of Luke, in a similar parable, he's going to be made king of another nation. But either way, he's giving his servants his things. And from what I understand, a talent's worth somewhere between 15 and 20 years' wages. So if we go by what the average household income was for last year, each talent would be worth about $1.4 million. So this master is entrusting them with a lot of wealth. But they're not only entrusted with it, they're expected to do something with it, either to advance his standing, his kingdom, or his wealth. And they're also each given a portion with what the master deems them capable of handing. So what are the attitudes of the servants? Well, we see from the first 2, they go out and they grow it. 2 are diligent and faithful with what they have been entrusted to them. They are building connections and relationships on the master's behalf. They are doing business on his behalf for him. They were working for the master's benefit in order that they might bring him a good account of what they had done with the things he had given them. And what does the other servant do? It says so. He buries the money. He tucks it away. So we might ask now, how does this correlate to the church? If you want to turn with me to Ephesians chapter 4, verses 4 through 12, it says, there is one body and one spirit, just as you were called to the one hope that belongs to your call. One Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is over all and through all and in all. But grace was given to each one of us according to the measure of Christ's gift. Therefore it says, when he ascended on high, he led a host of captives and he gave gifts to men. In saying he ascended, what does it mean but that he also descended into the lower regions of the earth? He who descended is the one who ascended far above all the heavens, that he might fulfill all things. And he gave to them apostles, the prophets, the evangelists, the shepherds, the teachers, to equip the saints for the work of ministry, for the building up of the body. In 2 Timothy chapter 1, Paul talks to Timothy about this great deposit entrusted to him. And what he writes to Timothy there, he says, by the Holy Spirit who dwells within us, guard the good deposit entrusted to you. And this good deposit is still entrusted to you and I today. We are all expected to go and do something. As each was given a portion of the master's wealth in Matthew chapter 25, so you and I have been given great wealth and given things. Now, this might not be great ability to speak or teach, but what have we been blessed with? Think about what skills have we been given? What abilities have we been given? What connections do we have through friends, family, or work? What about where we are in our social positions or the education we've had? Or what even just our life experiences have been? With this also, God has not given us all equal skills or abilities, but he expects each of us to use what we have been given and to take it out into the world. It is not something that we can put into a box, put in a closet, and let it collect dust. No, it needs to be out. If we continue reading in Matthew chapter 25, and starting in 19, it says, now after a long time, the master of those servants came and settled accounts with them. And he who had received the 5 talents came forward, bringing 5 talents more, saying, Master, you delivered to me 5 talents. Here, I have made 5 talents more. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over a little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. And he also went, who had 2 talents, came forward saying, Master, you delivered to me 2 talents. Here, I have made 2 more talents. His master said to him, well done, good and faithful servant. You have been faithful over little. I will set you over much. Enter into the joy of your master. The master returns, and each servant are to give their account of what they had done. What do we see with the first 2? What was their attitude? They showed reverence to the master with what he had been given, or what they had been given. It did not belong to them. Master, you have given me this. I am returning what you gave me of yours back to you. And we see not only did they return what they had been given, they had doubled what they had been given. They had been faithful and were called good and faithful servants for it. And the question I want us to ponder here is, what are we bringing the master? What are we returning to him from what we have been given? Think about the missions dinner we had the other night and all the work that's going on there, and the faithful work being done through that. What about the ladies' day we had a couple weeks back, and all the things our sisters have been doing and have done? And not even the things we know about, what goes on behind the scenes. What are each of us doing each week to be faithful with what the master has entrusted us? Because the question I then have to ask myself is, am I ready to give an account for how I've used the things that God has given me? And through his Son and Spirit, he has blessed me with certain things in order that I might serve and advance his kingdom. Am I ready to give an account? And are you ready to give an account for the things he has blessed you with? The scripture reading that was read for us this morning, James chapter 2, says, what good is it, my brothers, if someone says he has faith but does not have works? Can that faith save him? If a brother or sister is poorly clothed and lacking in daily food, and one of you says to them, go in peace, be warm and be filled, without giving them the things needed for the body, what good is that? So faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. And what I see from this is we should want to have a faith that is alive. a faith that is evident to the world around us. Think of Hebrews chapter 11. Sometimes in the church we call it the hall of faith, but it mentions all of these people who were faithful to God in not only just having faith, but how they lived their lives. John 15:8 says, "By this my Father is glorified, that you bear much fruit and so prove to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so have I loved you. Abide in my love. You keep my commandments, you will abide in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commandments and abide in his love." See, the follower of Christ is expected to bear fruit. However, if we never plant, if we never water, or we never nurture, what's going to grow? Will there even be growth if we are not being active in growing the things God has given us? Matthew 5:14-16 says, "You are the light of the world. A city set on a hill cannot be hidden, nor do people light a lamp and put it under a basket, but on a stand, and it gives light to all in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before others so that they may see your good works and give glory to your Father who is in heaven." See, we are, as Christians, called to be lights that shine brightly. We are called to be lights that shine brightly, but it's not about you or I. It's about Jesus. Because you and I, we are the representatives of heaven here on earth. But just as we see with the master returning with his first two servants, there we see that the faithful servant has a reward waiting. 2 Timothy chapter 4 and verses 6-8, Paul charges Timothy and says that there is a reward that is waiting. Now, Paul had a hard life already, but here it says, "For I am being poured out as a drink offering, and the time of my departure has come. I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race, and I have kept the faith. Henceforth, there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day, and not only to me, but also to all who have loved his appearing. Those that are faithful will be rewarded." And what is this reward? See, when the master returns, he already had great wealth, so the amount that that the servants returned to him, that wasn't what mattered. It was about the joy of being connected to the one who has it all, and that's what you and I should have today. This amount is little because our master has great wealth. It's the joy of being connected to the one who has it all. See, our reward's not about trying to get more stuff. It's the eternal time with God and the relationship that we can have with him, that we should want and desire to be with Jesus. The reward here is not wealth and material gain. 1 Peter 1, verses 3-9 says, "Blessed be the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ. According to his great mercy, he has caused us to be born again to a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead, to an inheritance that is imperishable, undefiled, and unfading, kept in heaven for you, who by God's power are being guarded through faith for a salvation ready to be revealed in the last time. In this you rejoice, though for now, a little while, if necessary, you have been grieved by various trials, so that the tested genuineness of your faith, more precious than gold that perishes, though it is tested by fire, may be found to result in praise and glory and honor at the revelation of Jesus Christ. And though you have not seen him, you love him. Though you do not now see him, you believe in him and rejoice with joy that is inexpressible and filled with glory, obtaining the outcome of your faith, the salvation of your souls." See, we are promised a great reward. I also want us to notice here, though, as the master returns, both servants get the same reward. Even though he returned with less than the first servant did, he was still given the same reward. Now, today we might say that isn't fair, that the second got the same reward as the first. But comparison, it is the thief of joy. See, what is important here is the blessing. It's not the talent or wealth or the master has returned or that he's giving to them. The reward is the same for both of them, because not of what they returned, but because they were faithful with what the master had given to them. And what I hope you see here, and the main understanding I want us to walk away from with this, As the follower of Christ is called to be faithful with and to what God has granted us. And see, that would be like a nice place just to end it right there, is let's just be faithful with what we're given. But Jesus doesn't end it there. If you keep reading, it says in verse 24, he who had received the 1 talent came forward, saying, Master, I knew you to be a hard man, reaping where you did not sow, and gathering where you scattered no seed. So I was afraid, and I went, and I hid your talent in the ground. Here, you have what is yours. But his master answered him, You wicked and slothful servant, you knew that I reap where I have not sown, and gather where I scattered no seed. Then you ought to have at least invested my money with the bankers, and at my coming I should have received what was my own with interest. So take the talent from him and give it to the one who has 10 talents. For to everyone who has will more be given, and he will have an abundance. But from the one who has not, even what he has will be taken away. And cast the worthless servant into the outer darkness. In that place there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. See, this third servant took what was given to him and he hid it in the ground. He didn't think he could handle it. It says he was afraid, but the master knew the servant could handle it. You see, the master has an expectation for his servant. In fact, you could even say the master had a high expectation for his servant. So burying this wealth in the ground, he thought that was the safe play. But what does the master say to this? He says it was slothful. It was a mismanagement. If the servant had just taken it to the bank, there would have been a return on the value of the investment. But it's not just that the servant is called slothful. The master calls what the servant has done wickedness. And I think in this way, it's trusting in self instead of trusting in the master. How often do I trust in myself instead of trusting God? And see, the master here calls it wickedness. He didn't have to return with double. He didn't have to come back with this great return, but he needed to bring something. See, this servant, he operated out of fear and not out of faith. See, this morning, I hope and pray that you and I do not live out of fear, or even that we are slothful in the things that God has given us, but that you and I are diligent with what we have been given. Because, like the servants, we will interact with the master. And either way, there's going to be a response from the master. I want you to think about this too. It's not about our own individual numbers. It's not how great you or I are, or how great we are. It's about being faithful to the Lord and working for him in what we have been given. Matthew chapter 10, verse 40 through 42 reads, Whoever receives you, he receives me. And whoever receives me, receives him who sent me. The one who receives a prophet because he is a prophet will receive a prophet's reward. And the one who receives a righteous person because he is a righteous person will receive a righteous person's reward. And whoever gives one of these little ones even a cup of cold water because he is a disciple, truly I say to you, he will by no means lose his reward. It's not about how much we can do. It's about what we do with it. So what can we do? If God, who has created the heavens and the earth, has tasked us with the stewardship of his kingdom here on earth, let us strive to bring a return to our master. And God has placed each of us here for a reason, not just here on earth, but he's placed each of us here in Washington, in Puyallup, for a reason. And we've been talking about, we have the My Greater Purpose coming up on December 3rd to hopefully learn more about how all the things that God has blessed us with can be used to further serve his kingdom. And that's a great way for us to look at ways we can be involved, to be working together to bring a return to our master. But we're about to have an invitation this morning, and perhaps you aren't even a part of this kingdom yet, or you felt you've not connected as well as you would have liked, or that there are things you need prayers for, or that you feel there's more you could be doing. We're offering this time of invitation for you to make those needs known.